Thank you. How are you? Good. You probably noticed that I jumped in last minute because Sean Buckley couldn't do it, which is very sad because he is an incredible lawyer, an incredible thinker in regards to food freedom. But I offered him because he phoned me up and said I can't come, so I offered Helen that I would jump in because I'm working very closely with him. He's a lawyer on one of the major cases I'm dealing with right now, and we're in constant contact in regard to the future of food. Now, you probably know that everything what has to do with this show, the Total Health Show, is at the end based on the decision that you want to make a choice, okay? And maybe you have followed that whole issue. Sean Buckley is involved with the child which died from this family, and then now they have been charged for negligence, and I mean you could say almost murder of their little child because they didn't vaccinate it and they didn't do that and didn't do that. But the circumstances are actually pretty clear that it wasn't their fault. But how vicious the attacks have become from government and mostly from the bureaucracy working within the government is quite astounding. And I think most people have no idea what is actually going on in the countryside, for example. There is a war going on, and I'm kind of leading you a little bit through that, and I wish really people would recognize how threatened their freedom is in regard to make proper choices and personal choices which can only be yours and not the government's, as you can imagine. So I lead you on a little journey here, which I had to put together. I gave already this morning 3 hours, this morning till 2 o'clock, 3-hour lectures up north, 2 hours north, because we had an education day at the farm. And I just made it, just arrived. So which is good. So I'm not a techie, so if something goes wrong, don't worry about it. It must be the computer then. So here you have a look just from a little aerial view, because I think it's important that from a visual point of view you understand what it means to be out on the farm. Most people don't know anymore what a farm is like. So you see the farm there. There's everything there. There's orchard there. There are gardens there. Barns, fences, everything what you can dream of when you think of Old MacDonald's farm. Here you see another shot of the main barn. There is in the front porch is the cheese operation, which highly publicized is a very illegal operation. We are more attacked than the people in the drug business, I mean, the illegal drug business. And I said already, I'm for 22 years in that battling the government regarding raw milk, and I should have gone into dope. I would have made more money, I would have been out of jail by now, and wouldn't have that hassle. See, this is what country life is all about. Here I'm bringing the cows home. You look at the herd of cows. We grazing them down the road, we bring them home, I take the horse, bring them home, and then we milk them and bring them back on the pasture. That's about 2 kilometers down the road. That's in the summer, naturally. In the winter, they're in the barn. And it just gives you an idea. This is one of these old breeds in Canada, the oldest breed in Canada, the Canadian cow. Here, close up behind there, you see a little village, a farm village, which houses school children, which come every year. School classes, quite a few school classes come to the farm to learn about farming, hands-on farming. Every one of these children learns how to milk by hand. Okay? And here, I just used that here. because I came across it, and it's not because of the Mariana thing, but because of the deaths we are encountering this is North America. You take it down a tenth, which would be 43,500 due to tobacco. So the Milk Act and the Health Act basically refer to the dangers of milk, okay? When you look at the at the Health Act, it says that they can confiscate everything which is a hazardous product. And so they constantly harass us about the milk, which is so dangerous, hasn't killed for 30 years anybody, but it's so dangerous. And then I came across the numbers from Ontario, the Ministry of Health, and they saying that it is every day there are 35 people dying from smoking every day. Okay. My raw milk battle started 1994. That is in its 22nd year now. And I calculated that during this time, over 300,000 people died in Ontario alone from smoking, just from smoking. Okay. Put that in perspective. This battle which we're fighting, which I can show you a little bit, put that in perspective to raw milk, where people make an informed choice, where we don't have at all the numbers. And then look at this one here, the energy drinks, where the health minister, the previous health minister, Aklukar, I think it was, she said, okay, several young people died in Canada from these energy drinks, which are free available. This was at the gas station. They are free available. And she said in front of the press that parents should have the right to make the choices for their children in regards to these things. So parents are responsible if they want to feed their children this or not. Okay? So it's all about choice in respect to these issues. And when it comes to milk, there's zero tolerance in regards that people can make a choice. I just want to introduce you a few players in that whole thing. This is my wife. She's a vicious, no, not vicious. She's a very determined lady when it comes to standing up to authorities. She's not shaken by it. She questions them. She requires all the paperwork before they, enter the farm and stuff like that. So, yeah, just look at her. And this is Julia Rickard, which brought me here. She is part of the NHPPA and works very closely with Sean Buckley, very helpful in these battles, and prepared a lot up in the booth for you to take home. Here you see another important, and it's interesting, it's mostly women when you look at that. When in the center there, this is Karen Selig. She has been with the Canadian Constitution Foundation, was a lawyer, and jumped in after my first round in the courts to defend us, and brought the whole thing up to the appeals court in Ontario. So I just wanted to honor these women, because it's very often in these battles one thinks the man is the man, and actually the women are the men. Here, I give you a taste of what it is, be a farmer who just wants to produce raw milk for people who want it. This is the car which has been sitting at our farm, surveying our farm, sometimes days, sometimes nights, and you have people sitting in there taking pictures. And you wonder what's going on. You go out there, and then the car speeds away. And we're enduring that now for the last 22 years, this constant harassment by officials. Then we have frequent visits by the police. And remember, we're just farmers, nothing else. Then we have frequent visits by police. You can see I'm not really uptight about police, because they come so often to the farm. And then they're blocking off the laneway. And then they're coming in with hazmat suits, as you can see there, blocking every door. We get all herded into the kitchen. A guy is standing in front of the kitchen door and the entrance door so that we can't get out. And in the meantime, they go through the entire farm to find evidence that we're providing raw milk to people who want the milk. They come full armed. And there's 25, we have about 30 to 35 cows, and they're bringing 25 armed officers to do the raid. So that was in 2006. This is one of the investigators, and the reason I'm putting this out there because I find it so fascinating to study the faces of people who do their job. And as you recall, the Nuremberg trial said very clearly, there is no excuse, okay, for doing your job when you're actually breaking the law and taking the right away from people. So I find it always fascinating to watch or to see the faces of these people who enforce nowadays the law. And the point I want to make here is that we don't realize that this level of bureaucracy has developed actually into almost a secret police, undercover police. These are all originally RCMP officers, OPP officers, and working now for the Ministry of Health and Ministry of Agriculture and Food, okay? They retire from that original job, and then they get another job. And I checked the Sunshine List. Most of these guys are on the Sunshine List. So they're making over $100,000 investigating farmers and get still a pension of most likely $60,000 from their previous job. This was a raid at our vehicle, where they surrounded our vehicle with police cars. And this woman there she was so determined to get me that she tried everything. Here they're taking pictures. Here, that's her. And her name is Hope, Judy Hope. I think there's not much hope there. So, but it's also, again, something to study really these faces of people who think they have to enforce a policy which is completely insane. Then it escalated into a new phase in just last year. The whole thing escalated in a new phase where I suddenly, along the road, I found cameras, surveillance cameras. And I took a close look at them. They were high sophisticated cameras which even at night would take pictures without flashing, which is really interesting, okay? So I informed the local police about it and said that we found these cameras. We deposited these cameras. There was a camera south of us and a camera north of us at the farm. And we deposited these cameras at the police and not at the police, at a lawyer's office, and told the police that when we know who deposited these cameras, we took the card out, by the way, there were 80,000 images on it of people coming to our farm, leaving our farm, cars, tractors, you can see it here, okay? One image is one of our young people going to the farm. I'm going out doing haying. There's somebody from our farm driving with a truck. One of our cowshare members driving to the farm. So just to give you an idea to how things are escalating, and 1984 is here. You know, when you think about it, that we now are under surveillance in such an extreme way that it could be almost scary if it wouldn't be scary. So here, that is one typical picture here, that when we deliver milk to Toronto and then there's all our customers. This was an event where we got raided just before, and the next time we went down with escorts and kept going, and the people cheering here with the milk. 3 days later, after this here, 3 days later, this happened here at the farm, and I'll lead you through it. This is our farm there. Suddenly our entrance got blocked. That was just last October. Our entrance got blocked. Police cars showed up. More and more people came onto the farm who raided our farm with a truck again, so a big truck to load up everything. Here you see the truck and all the inspectors. There were about 20 inspectors from 4 different agencies there, or 5 different agencies there, coming to do the same thing what I have been talking about for the last 22 years. So I was never hiding anything, and still they're showing up like that. But what was interesting, that I sent out one message, only one message on Facebook, believe it or not, on Facebook. One message which said, please come to the farm to witness another raid on our farm. This is the 3rd raid we had on our, the 3rd raid regarding milk on our farm, okay? These are the law enforcers. They all had glasses on. They didn't identify themselves. They wouldn't talk to us. They were just completely, almost like robots, going on the farm and then going everywhere in every corner. And if you don't experience that, you wouldn't believe it. You know, how far we have gone in regards to what government nowadays is doing to farmers who don't comply to the standards, to their standards. And it took about an hour, and then people showed up. And that is, I think, the point I tried to make here, that at some point when you, and I just want to have somebody, why don't you come here? I just wanted to demonstrate you something as an example. Okay, so you stand, this is the line, okay? And just stand your ground, okay? So, okay, she moves, that's fine, okay? She moves, she moves, she moves. So this is what government is used to. They push and you move, okay? That is what everybody is used to. Oh yeah, they must be right, so we keep moving. And that is the point, see, and then when you know that, then you start push back. And that is the great, thank you so much. That is the great awakening. What happens when actually people start pushing back? That is completely irritating to bureaucrats, to law enforcers, that people stand up. And you look at that, people came, they just stood there. They blocked off the entire lane. There came a farmer, he blocked off with a tractor the laneway. Police talked to the people who blocked the laneway and said, you get arrested if you don't move, and so on, and they just stood there. They just stood there. Didn't move. Kids were there. It was almost like a party. Kids were there, kids were playing around, and questions were asked, why are you here? What gives you the right to come here to take our food away? And it became more tenser by the minute. And then they called, here you can see that these people, the farm supporters stood there, and all the people who did the raid, standing down there, all grouped together. When they realized that there were so many people, he called them all back to the center, okay? They stopped their work. They quickly loaded some stuff up and got ready to leave, but they couldn't leave because these people were there. And then these people demanded that they unload everything they had taken. They said, you're not leaving here. They called in more police force. And then they decided to unload. They unloaded everything. The OPP, which was standing there, which was ready to arrest a lot of people, said, "Thank God," you know. They didn't want to do it, and for everybody, it was kind of a relief that it turned out like that. But it was in the court papers. Then I read the reason this guy here, which is Glenn Jarvie, he makes over $120,000, was a drug enforcer in the Hamilton police force, made over $100,000 there, is on a pension of, like I said before, $50,000, $60,000, and makes now $180,000 to harass farmers. That's the main thing he does, okay? Here you see the police force amassing outside at the farm to arrest people, and but then it suddenly turned. And the point was that people stood fearlessly there. Nobody was afraid. They just stood their ground and said, "No, this is our food, you cannot take that away." So that was from another raid where the courts ordered them to return it. They had confiscated, and then I went to court, and the court told them to return. And there's another phase to it, which is really important for everyone here to know. What we're fighting here today is not for us, it is for our children, okay? It is for the future of farming, it's for the future of our children, how they can access food of their choice. And so I tried to keep pictures of children, and these are not my children, but these are children from an Amish farmer in Wisconsin, where I went to help him at a raid there. And you look at these children, and they just, they look at the world and don't understand they don't understand what's wrong. What is wrong? I mean, they literally grew up sucking from the cow's teat, and now suddenly it's a dangerous product. So the image of children, I think, should kind of give us an inkling of what we are actually destroying if we don't resist. Look at these beautiful faces. This is the farmer with his little daughter. They got harassed in Edmonton, also about raw milk. His wife got pulled out of a truck, and she tried to save her children, and they hurt her so that she ended up in the hospital. The kids were screaming in the car. They confiscated all the products and so on. A huge disaster. This is the father. She cannot drink any other milk except raw milk. Okay, and I went out there and helped them in their legal battle, so that they would, because they were faced with $20,000, $30,000 in costs and fines, and we managed to basically that they only had to pay $1,000 and still kept going. Okay, so they always want to make a point with a lot of pain. These are these other children again. These are my boys here. That was another raid. And just to tell you how that works, because we are so used to these raids, be working with our children in a way that they understand, what is going on. First of all, we don't instill in them that police is bad, I mean, we know what police is, but we don't want this, that we create a tension when police comes on the farm. So I tell you a little story. When we had the raid before the last raid, so 6 o'clock in the morning, bang, 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 okay? Search warrant coming in. We say, please be quiet, the kids are sleeping, okay? So police comes in, they're flooding the house. We go to the bedroom of the children and say, hey, wake up. The police is here. How exciting, what a great day. And they jump up in their pajama, go out and look at the police, and then they ask, do they have guns? And I said, yes, they have guns. And they run to the police and said, hello, are these real guns? And they're all excited about it, that the police is there. Then we do breakfast together. I'm not with the police, but the family. We do breakfast together. and we have oatmeal in the morning, so they eat their oatmeal, and they eat their oatmeal very fast. And then they run to the police and show them that they finished their plate. And then I remember that a few times I told them, if you don't finish your porridge, I'm calling the police. So they thought, oh, we better show the police that we finished. And then the last thing is that at the end of the day, when I brought them to bed after we said prayer and so on, then one of the boys said, Papa, can you tell the police to bring their pajama the next time for a sleepover? And so if you get handed a lemon, then you make lemonade. And it's really important to deflate, not in a negative sense, police, but to make it in a way that their human faces come out of it, because the police still recognizes, that we're not fighting against the police. We're simply standing our ground. So just as a little story for your enlightenment. Here, see? Hooray, we have another raid on the farm. How exciting. So, this is the result of these cameras, because shortly after that raid, and after 2 months, after 2 months after discovering these cameras and bringing them to a lawyer's office, I suddenly get ordered to the police station to be arrested, fingerprinted, and mugshot for stealing cameras. The cameras had nothing on it which determined the ownership or who put them there. There was nothing on it, and as you know, if there's nothing on it, then you cannot really blame somebody for stealing it. He had made applications to the town council to find out who put these cameras there. We have our own little school there with 30 school children. They go there to the school, they walk and bike. So there was a real concern in the entire community about the safety of the children if there's a stalker. And then suddenly I get summoned to the police station to get arrested and fingerprinted. And that brought really the community together. What is interesting, that they asked me to come in on election night at 7 o'clock, because they thought that would be the easiest way to arrest me without the public knowing, okay? However, when we told our friends that, and the friends told their friends that, it became public, and then in a town of 2,500 people, there showed up over 150 people to bring me to the police station. And in a way, you have to be thankful, because it brings a community together to become aware what is going on in the world. Yeah. Here, these police officers, first of all, they threw my lawyer out, okay? They threw my wife out, they threw my lawyer out, and I refused to get fingerprinted, because I said it's not an indictable offense, it's not clear, and I want to know, first of all, because my lawyer was not there, I want to know what gives them the right to force me to fingerprint. Then I ended up the night in jail, and in the morning at 6 o'clock, there came 3 officers in. There were 4 officers in total. 3 officers pulled me out of the cell and forced me to give my fingerprints and mugshot. And then people asked, why didn't you resist? I said, well, if a guy stands there with their hand on the taser, you're not resisting when there are no witnesses. Okay. So, and then 6:30, I got thrown out of the police station. So, that's how the system works. In regards to the public education and also being involved in not only resisting, but also being productive in regards to working with legislators, I have been invited many times to the U.S. Regarding this issue. Here, I'm speaking to the Senate committee in California, where raw milk is legal and where they try to establish changes to the Raw Milk Act. And so I was invited to testify there as somebody from Canada in regard to the raw milk issue. Here we hold regularly press conferences at Queen's Park to inform all the politicians what's going on, so to be as transparent as possible, that they understand this is not something weird, what we are doing, but that there is a valid reason why people are asking for this milk. So always open and transparent. Here we're meeting with Patrick Brown. He's the leader of the Conservative Party in Ontario. We're meeting with him and briefed him on the whole raw milk battle, and that was about 2 months ago. And then we decided, against all odds, to draft a Declaration of Food Rights, which basically expresses very clearly that everyone has a God-given right to eat the food of their choice, and that we're not here to break the law, but that we will disobey unjust laws, and that we commit ourselves completely to that we will assert our right to eat the food of our choice. So we took this truck and brought it to Queen's Park, right, at the grounds of Queen's Park, and the people signed it right in front of Queen's Park. And there's hundreds of signatures on it. We had farmers from Peru coming to sign it, so it's quite an amazing kind of statement, the Declaration of Food Rights. On the back of the truck it says, "My farm, my food," so that when you drive down the road that people know this is my farm and this is my food. The system we have developed is that the people actually own a piece of the farm. They have invested in the farm, they are shareholders in the farm, they have voting rights in the farm, they have everything in the farm in order to get their milk. And that's why it's called My Food, My Farm. So after we signed the declaration, I lifted a glass of real milk, and what happens immediately? Police force from Queen's Park jumps in and says, "You can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that." And so an exchange happened between these police officers, which is kind of bizarre at the Queen's ground, because the Queen drinks raw milk. And so he says, "You can't do that." Then I say, "Are you kidding me? The Queen drinks milk and we are toasting to the head of our state." And for sure, then they got called back and everything was fine. Here's another, and it's a very practical approach, I have to tell you. This is a very practical approach, to become familiar that arresting is not the worst thing what can happen to you. Being arrested is not the worst thing. I think, in a sense, being arrested is a powerful statement of the failure of the state to respect your rights. Here I'm getting arrested on another incident when they wanted to force a major dump on Site 41 up in north of Barrie. I don't know if you remember that. It was big fights, Native Indians got involved and so on. And it was just 5 days before a crucial vote in council where they were still constructing the site, the dump site, and nobody was there anymore to stop the trucks for the construction. And then I said to my people at the farm, I said, "We need to go there and stop the construction." So Friday night we went there, Friday afternoon we went there, we blocked the entrance, no construction, police came, I got arrested. Came home, but got released on the promise not to go there. I was banned from that site and had to appear in court. Monday morning, I say to my people, we're going right back. Monday morning, I was back, chained ourselves to the fence, and then the game was over. Then I got arrested, ended up at Penetang in solitary confinement for 3 days. But what was interesting, that shortly thereafter, the town council voted against the dump. So the whole dump was, and I can't say that it was my making that the dump wasn't built. There were all these people involved in that. The only role I had to play at that time was to prevent that they finish the dump before they make the vote, because once they start dumping garbage in there, it's a completely different situation. Then it's not anymore about construction, then you have a dump, and then it requires a completely different legal approach how to stop that again. So, got arrested, ended up in jail. It was not easy, I can tell you that, not drinking and not eating for 3 days, but it's one way how you can force officials to look at that you're actually still free in jail. You can do whatever you want to do with yourself. And one of the power I had, I can decide for myself that I don't want to eat. And I told them that when I got in there. And then now comes another disturbing story, and that is about a woman. Her name is Montana Jones, made a lot of headlines years ago. Montana Jones and her Shropshire sheep. The story is very tragic. She raised these sheep. She had a small flock. She was a single farmer and a loving shepherd of her sheep, as you can see. And the sheep basically were following her everything. And then one day she gets a phone call or a visit from the veterinarian and says, we need to put your farm under quarantine. And then she wonders why, and they said, because you sold a lamb 2 years ago to Alberta, and in Alberta the lamb got scrapie. So we think that your flock is actually the source of this scrapie. She says, this is impossible. I never had scrapie here. And they said, doesn't matter, you're under quarantine. Investigation started, I don't know how many years it went on. She was fighting with them. She said, no, this is not right, this cannot happen, and so on. And she asked for conclusive evidence that her sheep was actually the sheep which was identified as having scrapie. And there were inconsistencies in I'll tell you later. So she leads the sheep out. Here are the inspectors, okay, from the CFIA. This is now a federal agency who are in charge of protecting the sheep flock in Ontario, in Canada, okay, mostly because of economic reasons, export, import, and so on. Here, they wanted to get these sheep here, and she basically blockaded herself in her house so that they couldn't get it. There, they finally come and take all her sheep away. These were some of the last sheep she had, but before that, and I'm using this picture here because you see the police, and then there are CFIA inspectors all over her, okay? What makes this case interesting, that 4 years ago, April 1st, Fool's Day, April 1st, the CFIA, they told her they will come and butcher all her sheep on April the 1st, okay? I gave a lecture at Trent University 2 days before that, on the obligation or our responsibility to resist, and that was a lecture to farmers who always complain about that there is too much interference by government and regulations and so on. And I try to explain to them how important it is if you see something unjust happen that you are resisting or that you take a stand. Because if you don't take that stand, then the powers, you yielding the power to more and more power to these agencies, which are not even law enforcers in the sense, they're not police officers, they are just bureaucrats who can make a decision and put your farm under quarantine, and they don't even have to prove it. Just by the suspicion that they could come, you have a farm? You don't have a farm, okay. So if you have a farm, they could just basically claim that there is a suspicion that there is a reportable disease on your farm and shut you down, okay. So I talked to these farmers and explained that if you want to empower bureaucrats, then just let them do whatever they want to do. And so I gave this speech about civil disobedience and nonviolent resistance and so on. And then comes a group of people to me and say, well, have you heard about Montana Jones? And I said, no, I know about Montana. I know that Montana is struggling with bureaucrats regarding her sheep. And so they talked to me, and then I said, so what's happening? And then they said, well, they want to butcher the sheep in 2 days. And then I asked them, so what are you going to do? And then they said, well, we don't know. There's nothing we can do. And I said, what did I just talk about? And then the result of that was that 2 days later, the CFIA showed up, the sheep were gone. The sheep had disappeared. They looked with helicopters for the sheep. They went from door to door to find the sheep. The sheep weren't there, okay? And then the sheep ended up about 300 kilometers or 200 kilometers away on a farm. And somebody in that group who was kind of moving and organizing this sheep thing ratted out, okay? So they found the sheep. They went right there. The sheep got all slaughtered. They got all tested. They were all healthy, okay? And 5 days later, we had a raid on our farm. They looked for evidence that I was involved. And 4 months later, I got charged for conspiracy against the state. How does anyone know that Montana Jones sheep had scrapie? They don't know. Because through the whole pre-trial, it hasn't gone to trial yet. Through the whole trial, there surfaced something which was published in the US and here by the National Post, which suggested that there was an inclination or knowledge that actually her sheep did not have scrapie. And they still went ahead to go after her, okay? Now, what is interesting that at the moment when we discovered this internal memo, they put on a publication ban, which is unheard of. A publication ban, usually a publication ban comes on if the accused doesn't want to be, wants protection, okay? Usually, the Crown and so on, they don't, because they want that people know what these bad people do, you know? And in this case, the Crown asked for a publication ban, and the publication ban only can be put into place if the preliminary hearing hasn't started. Our preliminary hearing started, so that's already against. And then the other thing is that actually we are supposed to ask for publication ban and not them, and we wanted no publication ban. So what happens is the judge ruled, yes, nobody should know anything about the case. So total publication ban on everything. This is what we got delivered as evidence on their part. This is the disclosure from the Crown on the sheep case. This is how much we got in the last 4 years. This is all the disclosure regarding the sheep case, okay? We got charged over 3 years ago, This is, and this is just a nice look at it. This is when we got arrested 3 years ago, just over 3 years ago. Look at the fellow on the right side, okay? And now look at this picture. He decided that he will not cut his hair and his beard until the trial is over, just to demonstrate how long it takes, you know, that justice is spoken. Yeah? And we don't know even today if the trial will happen this year or next year. No idea. Being creative is nice. I'm also a conductor, orchestra conductor. And a friend of mine wrote unknowingly to me a libretto for an opera, which is called Trial by Jury from what are the famous? Gilbert and Sullivan, thank you. Gilbert and Sullivan. They wrote an opera, Trial by Jury, and this friend rewrote the opera, Milk Trial by Jury. And so we performed that in our barn with orchestra and everything. She is a singer from the Vienna State Opera, a friend of mine. So she acts as the anti-raw milk movement, and here is the judge. There's a Toronto singer presenting me. So it is really important that you look at the lighter side of these issues. I'm putting this picture in because it seems as if raw milk or the glass of milk has become the symbol of food freedom. Because it's really at the moment, the only battle which you really effectively can battle. When you look at GMO, okay, with GMO, it's all activism, activism, activism. You cannot go into court really with a GMO unless you have a lot of money. When you get charged, it's a different story. So raw milk has become the symbol for a food fight which we all face and which will become bigger and bigger. Here, to honor our friend Sean Buckley, he's on the left. He's the guy who is defending us in the sheep case. You know the thing, what is a lawyer at the bottom of the ocean? A good start. It's a good start. With him, I wouldn't send him down to the ocean. He is totally ethical, okay? And here, I'd like to thank the Canadian Constitution Foundation for supporting us in this legal battle for many years. Thank you so much. Are we done now?